Well, Giant Leap Consulting is a courage building company. And so we help people and organizations be more courageous. So we took all of that idea, and our foundational idea is that courage is the most important of all business virtue. And that's not just us saying that. Aristotle said that courage is the first virtue because it makes all the other virtues possible. And if that's true in life, and Aristotle said it, and C.S. Lewis said it, and Winston Churchill said it, and if that's true, that courage is the first virtue in life, and it's the premier virtue, why would it be any less different in the workplace? Courage is the first virtue of business. It's the first virtue of leadership. And if you think about all of the concepts that connect to the idea of courage, things like leadership, to be a leader means to render bold decisions that some people are going to disagree with, and that takes courage. To be an innovator means to draw outside of the lines and experiment. The greatest innovations almost always start out as blasphemy. So if you want to be an innovator, you have to have courage. And if you want to be a great salesperson or business developer, you have to knock on hundreds of doors in the face of rejection over and over again, and that takes courage. And yet, to date, there have been no training programs on how do you build workforce courage. So that's what our company does. We're a courage building company, and we go around the world helping people and organizations be more courageous. It was inspired by my book, Courage Goes to Work. I had experienced I had encountered my own courage along the way, and it was such a redeeming experience for me personally. And then I was doing a lot of executive coaching, and it came down to most of the one-on-one conversations in coaching came down to something that the executive was avoiding, that they knew that they should be doing, but they were avoiding it. And more often than not, they were avoiding it because of fear. Sometimes it was avoiding taking on a challenge that was too hard, but they wanted to, but they were too fearful to do so. More often than not, though, it was avoiding a conversation that they knew that they needed to have, even bold people in senior executive roles. So what it came down to was a lack of courage. So it started to key into this idea that courage is really needed in the workplace. And so I wrote the book, Courage Goes to Work. The premise is that not all courage is the same. It's a mistake to think that courage is this big, ambiguous, morphing thing, and it dwarfs us. And, well, I'm not really courageous, that's just for heroes kind of thing. I advocate a more everyday, tempered experience of courage, and we look at 3 different dimensions of courage that I call the 3 buckets of courage. There are 3 behavioral buckets. The first kind of courage is what we call try-courage. It's the courage of first attempts. The first time you do something, when you encounter the unknown. For you, it's a pioneering event. Other people may have done it. It's the courage of action. Other people may have done that action, but you haven't done it yet. For you, it's a pioneering event. It's a courage associated with bold action. We call it try-courage. It connects to initiative, like stepping up to the plate is a try-courage sort of statement, which is different than the second bucket of courage that we call trust courage. And this isn't the courage of bold action. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's releasing my need to control and my need to be right. It's experiencing vulnerability. Oftentimes it's following somebody else's direction, me being willing to follow you, and it's a releasing kind of courage. An example of that in the workplace might be delegating. For me to delegate to you and entrust you to get the job done and not hover over you like a helicopter manager and really entrust you, that takes courage on my part, because if you screw up, it may become a reflection on me. So we have try courage, trust courage, and then the third bucket of courage is what we call tell courage. And it's the courage of voice or assertiveness. It's the courage it takes to have a courageous conversation. If you're in a leadership role, it's the courage it takes to give somebody direct feedback that their ears may not want to hear, but it's really important for you to say to help close blind spots for them. And that works both ways. It's also the courage it takes for you in a leadership role to hear somebody who's at a lower level in the organization give you upward feedback. So it's this courage of assertiveness. It's not biting your tongue to go along and get along. It's the courage it takes to be the truth teller, speaking truth to power or speaking truth to one another. So Courage Goes to Work looks at those 3 different types of behavioral buckets that we call the 3 buckets of courage.